Okay, let's get into training, fellas. Everyone who's not part of the attacking unit, you guys can get going, you attackers. I want to have a bit of a talk to you, okay? Sweet, right, fellas. Not doing too badly here in the Champions League so far. We can still find our way into a European competition, but I think we all know we can do better than 1 goal in 3 games, am I right? So, I hope you guys haven't lost your mojo, because that stuff's expensive and lots of technology. We can't really afford to do that Austin Powers style, but let's just try and improve a little bit these next couple of games, because I think we know we can do better than 1 goal in 3 games. Just find your mojo, boys, okay? Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 54 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and in today's episode we have a rematch from yesterday's episode against Atalanta, this time at our home away from home in Reykjavik, and off the back of that we will have the end of season review for season 5 of this save. So if you are looking forward to this episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But we are going straight into this only game of today's episode against Atalanta. Before that end of season review, if you missed yesterday's episode, the first game against these guys as well as the game against Porto in this Champions League group stage, I will leave a link to that episode above my head in the top right corner. But we did lose that game 3-0, hoping for a much better performance here, albeit these guys do look like the benchmark in this group so far, and unfortunately we are suffering a few suspensions and injuries going into this one. Of course, Xavier Mbiyamba picked up a couple of yellow cards over the first 3 games of the group stages. That means that he is out for this game in today's episode, and since that first game against Atalanta, unfortunately in training, Gabriel Corbo has pulled his ankle ligaments. He is going to be missing for just this game, but that means we are down to the real bare bones in terms of defence here at Völsungur for this upcoming game. Kurt Shaun, not a bad replacement on the right-hand side of the defence. He's an out-and-out centre-back, so not missing too much there, hopefully, but we are pairing him up with Raul Prada, who has done a decent job at centre-back when called upon. He will start on the left-hand side, being a natural left-back. That means we have 2 right-backs on the bench, both Carlo and Garrido, with Chris Jansson sneaking his way back onto the bench for that out-and-out centre-back cover. So we're a little bit weak defensively for this upcoming game. Otherwise, though, first choice 11 with Larson back in. Just not quite sure who our best left winger is at the moment between him and Bjarkason. He does have the higher star rating, younger player. I think he might be the future, more so than Bjarkason, so he can start out on that left wing. But it will be a tough task against an Atalanta team that did beat us 3-0 yesterday, albeit we are back home. Hopefully that does help us out, but that change at the back might negate that somewhat. We have done a little bit more stuff since the end of yesterday's episode as well. Improving the staff at the club won't show you, because we already had the best staff in the league. That hasn't really changed too much, but trust me, we have got some much better staff here at the club now, especially medically. Hopefully some significantly better physios and the like can help our players get back from injury sooner, improve the scouts, pretty much improved everywhere. Hopefully that helps us improve over the next little while and for our next foray into European competition next season as well. And we've also been renewing a few player contracts as well, the likes of Nicolucci Caviglia, quite a few important players who had their contracts coming up at the end of 2026. We have locked them down, the players who we are definitely looking at keeping around for the most part. Everyone's been pretty good at accepting contracts for a couple of seasons, and we'll just look to build and improve the team off the back of this Champions League run. I think we've still got about £7 million that we can spend in this upcoming transfer window, which does start in February next year, but we'll just wait and see how our players do perform in these group stages of the Champions League and evaluate things from there in terms of where we will look to strengthen the team, as I think that's probably the sensible thing to do, considering that we did do things very, very comfortably domestically. So we'll see where we get on, see who struggles in these Champions League group stages as a whole, and we might look to improve things in those areas when we do hit the transfer window at the start of 2026. But I'm pretty sure that's all the admin stuff out of the way before the sole game of today's episode, and we'll come back shortly from the Laugardars Villa and see if we can turn things around against Atalanta. And TV coverage for this game, there is our lineup as we ran through before on the tactics screen, just those changes at the back and still figuring out who our best left winger is. There are Atalanta today playing in the red. They look very similar to the lineup that they put out in yesterday's episode, and there is a reminder of what the table looks like. Hopefully Porto can get the job done against Athletic Club in the other game, and we can hopefully maybe just sneak a point here and try and keep ourselves in the hunt to nab one of those Europa League qualifying spots by finishing third in the group. 11 minutes gone, no shots in this game so far, and we do have the first highlight. We do look to play out from the back, but Atalanta are pressing us quite high. Fellini boots that deep, but it's nowhere near any of our players, so the first highlight is going to be in Atalanta's favour. It's a ball there for Pasalic, and they do open the scoring. First highlight, and we go 1-0 down. At least this time it's not a dodgy penalty. Had a look back at that when editing yesterday. It was pretty dodgy, let's be frank, but that's not a good start from us this time from open play. Pasalic just finds way too much space there in behind our defence, albeit a bit of a makeshift one, and we go 1-0 down at the 12-minute mark. 14 minutes gone, not long off the back of that opening goal for Atalanta, and we're going to be having to play out from the back yet again. That's a shocking ball though, and they are back on the attack. The goal scorer, Pasalic, gets that out to their right winger with the name that I can't really pronounce. Male puts that in for Duvan. A shot blocked there, so there's another chance for Atalanta, and not long off the back of that, they might have another. Are we again being forced to play out from the back? Galtason has picked up an early yellow card as well, which is not ideal from our defensive midfielder, although Nygaard finds João Pedro. This is one of the few times against these guys so far we have had possession in their half. Larson back for Swiderski, plays it back to Diaz. What can he do? Tries to pick out João Pedro in the top left corner, and we might have things all square after 15 minutes, albeit VAR is going to check this. Hopefully he's onside. We have only scored one goal in the opening 3 games of this Champions League group stage, but there is our second. João Pedro with his 28th goal of the season. Could be a big goal for him, because if they didn't score today, Benjamin Rubio might have been getting a run in those next 2 games to finish off this group stage, but a well-taken header there from João Pedro into the top left corner, and after 15 minutes, it is 1-1 here at home against Atalanta. And that is half-time in this game, 1-1, and we will take that considering what happened to us against this opposition in yesterday's episode. We've only had that one shot on target. Luckily, it did find the back of the net. Atalanta definitely dominating things, but we are all square, and this would be a pretty nice point considering Atalanta's form so far in the Champions League group stage. Will make no changes at half-time, seeing as things are going fairly well, and hopefully we can hold on for at least a point here in the second half. And a very early highlight here in the second half was just about to make a substitution. Larson's picked up an orange niggly little injury, so we'll probably take him off for Bjarkason off the back of this highlight. Good slide tackle there from Leandro Diaz, but falls into an Atalanta player's feet. They play that through. Good save though from Fellini, so we'll make this change just to see if that will stop the corner from happening. A little bit cheesy that, but sometimes that does work, and we probably should be taking Larson off at this stage. Bjarkason can come on for him early for substitution, I suppose, there to start off the second half. So we will make that one and see if the corner does take place off the back of that. Thankfully, it doesn't. Good save from Fellini early in the second half to keep it locked up at 1-1. Okay, 65 minutes gone in this game. I think we're going to make a change at the back. Raul Prada struggling at centre back, and Leandro Diaz is 1 yellow card away from picking up a suspension. So what I think we are going to do here is take off Diaz just so that he doesn't pick up a yellow card for a suspension. And for him, I think what we're going to do here is bring on Ian Carlo and move Coutinho into the centre back. So a bit of a shuffle around there at the back just to make sure Diaz doesn't pick up a yellow card. Coutinho slotting in to centre back there alongside Kurt Shaw. 25 minutes left, still locked up here at 1-1. And an update on the other game, Porto have picked up a red card, still locked up at 0-0. So a point here could actually be very important. Still 24 minutes left And up to the 70-minute mark now, we're going to do another little bit of a shuffle around there at the back. Raul Prada's rating still on the downward decline, and he's also picked up a yellow card. So what I think we're going to do here is bring Garrido on for him. He can play centre back. Coutinho can play left back. So another shuffle round at the back now. A back four of Carlos, Shaw, Garrido, and Coutinho to round off this game. 20 minutes left. Still locked up at 1-1. Inside the last 5 minutes, it is still locked up at 1-1 here. Unfortunately, though, Athletic Club are holding a lead against Porto. That would be a disastrous result for us, although Forgan Hazard has got a goal back late there for Porto, so that makes things not so bad. Ideally, they would have won that game. Maybe they can come back in the dying embers, albeit going down to 10 men did not help our cause there, but that is a good and very important point against the team that beat us 3-0 in yesterday's episode. Was not expecting to get anything out of that game, but very pleased that we did, especially considering the result in the other game by the looks of it. Didn't play overly well there, but a lot better than we were against these guys in yesterday's episode. That header from João Pedro is enough for us to pick up a point. We will tell the boys that we are very happy with that. And having a look at the group table at the end of the gameplay segment of today's episode, not much change with everyone drawing in this match week. Atalanta still top on 8 points. We can only draw level with those guys, but we could still potentially sneak our way into the knockouts of the Champions League if we can win both games coming up in the next episode. First up, it is actually Athletic Club. I think I got that wrong at the end of yesterday's episode. The first game of the next episode is at home to Athletic Club, and then we round off things with an away trip to Porto, who, as I said yesterday, I felt we were a little bit unlucky not to beat in that home tie. So they're two games that we could win if we can bring a performance similar to what we did today into those games that we are still bottom of the group, probably hoping that we can find a way to sneak up to third to make those Europa League knockouts if we are being realistic. But that's how things stand going into the last couple of games of this Champions League group, and we'll come back shortly and run through the end of season review for season 5 of the Save. And here we are about to enter the end of season review, actually right before the next game in the Champions League against Athletic Club, only 2 days before it. But you can see we've got a few articles here about our unbeaten season in the league, winning all 22 games in that league season. A very good season, going to be hard to top that one, albeit we are still looking at strengthening this team over the next few seasons so we can keep improving in Europe. So we might actually be able to match that, but it was a superb season. The captain is very happy with us, and we now make our way over to the best 11. You can see the players who have made their way into this team now. Patrick Nygaard is the pick of them. He has been really good since coming into the team last season when we did lose Goncalves thanks to his release clause being triggered. Corbo, Gavioli, Bonnet, Carlo, and Nicolucci Caviglia have also been added to this team. So it's starting to look a little bit more familiar to the team that we do have here now. Is this best 11? Bardu still in goal over Sarah Fellini. I imagine that might change over the next season. This time next season, Sarah Fellini might have that spot nailed down at the back. Diaz, Shaw, Mbiamba, and Carlo. That's pretty close to our current back four. Just Corbo on the bench would make that what it is currently. Bonnet still keeps the defensive midfielder spot, probably because Galtason hasn't quite played enough games in his first season, albeit he has looked quite impressive. Nicolucci Caviglia paired up with Gavioli in the midfield. That's something which we might actually try next season because Gavioli is improving quite significantly. He could be worth trying over Sviderski, him or Arneson, the player who'll be signed from Mulder at the start of this season. He's another option in that Mazzala role. Sviderski just on the decline compared to those players a little bit, so something to watch out for at the start of next season. Ledson keeps his left wing spot with none of our current left wingers really standing out so far this season, at least in continental football, although Bjarkason is on the bench. Nygaard on the right wing and Pedro up front, as you would expect. So very similar to what we're currently rolling with here at Völsungur is that overall best 11. And now we make our way into the season review proper. Haven't actually had a chance to look at this yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how off the rails this does go. But we did pick up the quadruple, winning the League Cup, the League, the Super Cup, and of course the Icelandic Cup as well. Nice to win that after a few years where we didn't get the job done. Looking at signings of the season, the pick of them according to the fans in the board, was Brynjar Gautasson, and I find it hard to argue with that. He was pretty darn good in that defensive midfield role, especially because he was a player that we wouldn't have been able to sign if Bologna did not come in for him. So a very nice pickup there for us from Nuts Kayara, a player who I had my eye on for quite some time. He looks like a good player for the future, good homegrown option, and he should be with us for a fair while in that defensive midfield role. And Mbeba also had a pretty good season. Some of these other guys didn't play a lot in behind them, Kautasson and Ainsko, although Ainsko's probably going to move up to being our second or third choice right winger next season. I think Wilson Isidore we're going to start phasing out of the club. Making our way down a bit more, Larson, Arnason, Rubio, Goodnasson, all pretty solid when they did get game time. Played a fair bit of money there for Arnason, but as I said before, he could be a potential starting option for us in the Mazzala role next season. So this first season might just be useful getting him up to speed with how we work here at Völsungur, and the same could be said for Rubio as well. He is a player with a lot of potential. He might start putting some good pressure on Yao Pedro up front. Goodnasson, we have the option to buy for £2.4 million, leaning towards doing that at the moment because having a third choice homegrown nation striker of good quality could be quite useful. I know it's a lot of money for a third choice striker, but at 21 years old, I think that's probably a good idea. So we're probably going to use a fair bit of our transfer budget just to keep him around at the club. And then we go down to a few more players that we did sign. Most of these guys were on free transfers apart from Barkasson. Coutinho had a decent season, 6.85, but maybe looking for a little bit more out of our right backs. Maybe the likes of Ian Carlo can step up into the first team next season if they keep improving. And then a few players who didn't get a lot of game time here at the club. In terms of transfers out, I think most of these were thought of quite nicely, although the likes of Tony Gropin was a player I would not have preferred to sell, but he just would not sign an extra year extension here at the club. A lot of players here who the board weren't too happy with us selling. We now start to make our way down to players who they were a bit happier to see go. Gunnarsson, who was one of our backup goalkeepers at the club, being homegrown in nation. He left us, was a bit poor quality, so that one had a bit of a better rating. Stefansson, not quite up to the level of the strikers we have at the club these days. Lillamosa was very good when he was at the club, but we've had a few players usurp him, especially since the addition of Gautasson, and Oskarsson has done nothing since we let him go on a free transfer, and we let a few players go out on loans. We are looking at extending pretty much all of these loans just so that they keep going out and helping out some other teams in Iceland, apart from Boscolo Shio, who is in Italy. But I do find it quite hard to get rid of all the players that we do want to send out on loan. So I think the ones that are out on loan, if they're interested in extending their stay, we are going to look to do that because it is quite hard to get interest from the other Icelandic teams. And Christian Coffey is leaving on a deal at the end of his loan. He is no longer going to be at the club come next season, joining Hafnarfjordur permanently. So that wraps up the transfer business. Going through the competitions, we pretty much aced this one. As you can see, unbeaten, did not drop a single point in the league this season. Some pretty comfortable wins for the most part as well, and that's quite impressive considering we were putting out a pretty heavily rotated team once Champions League qualifying and the group stages of that competition did start. But it's going to be very hard to top that season. 57 goals scored, only 4 conceded. That is a superb domestic season. The Mulkabikaran, we did that pretty comfortably in the end as well. That tough early tie against HK, but we won that one in the end 2-0, and from there, never really looked in doubt of not winning the Icelandic Cup for a second time. The Super Cup, we picked that up in extra time, thankfully, because that was a bit of a dicey one, and the deal with Bakar, a little bit shaky at the start with the vertical tiki-taka being implemented, but once we got used to that a bit more, we did kick on nicely and win the final of that 1-0 over Valerian, and we are, of course, still in the Champions League, albeit the board very happy with how we are doing. They only expected us to reach the second qualifying round of that competition. I would like us, though, to at least get third, just so that we do make the knockouts of European competition to back up what we did last season in the Conference League. The moments to remember, the biggest win was 7-0 in the league. That was a quite early game at home against Fram Reykjavik. The match to remember is apparently the 2-0 win against Bate Borisov in the Conference League. Not too sure if I agree with that. I suppose it was a good win, but I would have thought there'd be a few more notable wins Then that one, and our goal of the season did come against Sparta Prague. That was that early screamer from Galtason, which did put us 1-0 up in the playoff in the first league at home. Coming from an early corner, this one, just knocking the ball about off the back of that. Pedro lays it back to Galtason, and he rips that into the top right corner from an absolute mile out. Hard to go past that one as the goal of the season, as we did suggest at the time when it was scored. Looking at the finances, these should be really good this past year, and indeed they are. Everything going up quite significantly with our run in the Champions League this season and in the Conference League knockouts. Interesting to see the club reputation hasn't gone up, though. I was hoping that would go up a little bit, so that's a little bit disappointing, the fact that we have not had a rise in club reputation. Going over to how we lined up for this season, that looks a little bit off, as it usually does. We sold Lamosa early. Bama didn't play too much. Apart from that, not too far off, but yeah, these seasonal 11s don't seem to be the greatest way of looking at things. Over to the accolades to wrap up this end of season review. For the most part, Fans Player of the Season, Patrick Nygaard, and he also got Young Player of the Season. He has been absolutely superb for us out on the right wing. Signing of the season was Brynjar Galtason, as you saw before. No complaints with that. Also picking up goal of the season, top goal scorer, Pedro with 28. Most assists, Nygaard with 15. Most man of the matches, Pedro with 7. Highest average rating actually went to Kurt Shaw on a 7.6. And that wraps those things up in terms of the record breakers. The most league goals by a player in a season, Pedro with 13. Most goals by a player in a match, Pedro got a hat-trick. Nygaard's broken the record for most assists in a season. Sarah Fellini for the most clean sheets. The most league goals by a player still with Olgierson. And the highest transfer fee paid in the club's history, Arnason at £1.2 million. We're probably going to break that, though, in the upcoming transfer window. And competition awards, we have done a pretty comprehensive clean sweep of these. The player of the year was Gabriel Corbo in the top division. The golden boot, Yao Pedro, even though he did only play about half of the league games for us with the way that Champions League qualifying did work out. And the young player of the season, also Brynjar Galtason in the top division, as well as at the club. And that wraps up what has been a very good season domestically here at Völsungur. Hopefully we can get the job done early next week and continue on our way to start off 2026 in the knockouts of a European competition. But that will do it for today's episode. A pretty good result there at home against Atalanta, albeit somewhat offset by the fact that Athletic Club also picked up a draw in their game. And doing the end of season review, we will come back at the start of next week. An early warning, the video might come out a day later than usual because it is a public holiday here in New Zealand on Monday, and I'm not too sure if I'm going to get the chance to do a video over the weekend. So be warned, if there's no video on Monday or Tuesday, depending where you're watching, it will come out the following day, just because I haven't quite had the space and time to do a recording over the long weekend here in New Zealand for Waitangi Day. But we are going to round off the Champions League group stage at the start of next week. We're playing Athletic Club first at home. That is a must-win game. If we don't win that one, we can't go above them. So that needs to be a win in our favour if we've got any chance of jumping up to third or higher. And off the back of that, we travel away to take on Porto, who, as I said, I think are a little bit vulnerable, considering we probably should have won that game against them yesterday if the woodwork did not intervene quite as much. So a big episode coming up to start off next week, and hopefully we can carry on in Europe if we pick up some good results and jump up this group table. So that's what you have got to look forward to. A reminder that if you did enjoy today's episode, then please do go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well until early next week, either Monday or Tuesday, where we wrap up the group stages of the Champions League. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.